I'll call us to order for this special call meeting of the Danville City Commission for Thursday, August the 12th. The hour is 5:37. And I apologize for the delay. I'll take the responsibility for that. Item number one is a safety protocol discussion. Mr. Coffey, what have you, sir?
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. What we're talking about is COVID real quick, and we're going to take just a minute to raise your awareness and then to plant some seed for thought. We are, since the last time the commission met Monday night, the governor issued the mask mandate for schools, and staff has met on Tuesday afternoon in our staff meeting and discussed whether or not we need to reinstitute the policy of a mask mandate inside of the building to be consistent with what is being what we are transitioning back into in our school districts, et cetera. And so we've concluded that we will be developing a policy Monday or Tuesday of next week that will indicate that in public buildings that where we have public employees will be requiring a mask. We want to make you aware of that, and that particularly for the public spaces, and it's not inconsistent with what we did the last year. We will be asking you on the 23rd to what your response would like to be, if at all. One of the things that you can see, there's a number of seats here. Monday night we had quite a large crowd. One of the things that we would ask you to consider is, do you want to restrict the number of people in a meeting, given the size of our rooms? If we always have unlimited room size, then it might be different, but certainly folks can request to be on the agenda still, and so citizens can be scheduled and come, sort of like they did the last time. But do you want to restrict the size of the general audience? And I'm not asking you to express an opinion tonight. Certainly you can give me feedback over the next few days before the meeting if you'd like to talk about that. But I just wanted to make you aware that that is in our minds, and that we anticipate some action internally the first part of next week. And then we will proceed and answer any question you got on that issue.
Let's add to your list of things you want us to think about and resolve is, do you want a resolution to the community urging everyone to take caution?
Yes.
Yeah.
You asking the commission that, or you asking staff that?
Well, we have a...
asking staff to bring that to us at the next commission meeting. Okay. And let us decide. We can be thinking about that between now and then, along with the other things you said.
Yeah, we can go so far as to have a draft, some sort of draft resolution done for in anticipation of Monday night, if that's the general temperament. And if with the head nodding I see, I probably would do that. Okay. And just be prepared to deal with it a little bit more robustly on Monday night. But I just want to make sure you know that it is in our minds and we are being prepared to deal with it on the 23rd. Okay. Yep.
We'll move on into item 2, which is the Parks Facilities Designer interviews. I want to thank our guests for putting together your best thoughts and coming here to share them with us. These types of gatherings are bittersweet. They're fun, they're exciting. It's always good to see fresh ideas and to see what could be. But it's also tough to make the decision because there's never really a clear-cut deal. And so I want you to know that that's the bitter side for us, but that's why we get paid the large dollars that we do to make those calls.
Wait, you get paid?
Yeah. So there's no winners, there's no losers. There's just going to be one that gets the business, but everybody's done a great job, and I want to thank you for that. Evan, you leading the discussion? Josh, you leading the discussion?
Yeah, I'll probably take the lead
right.
If you want me to kind of tell you all the format before they get started. I've let the firms know they'll have 30 minutes to make a presentation, and then we'll allot about 20 minutes for question and answer. if we can fill that 20 minutes with questions. So that's the format that I've sent to them that they're aware of. We'll keep track of time and stuff over here. But at the end of that 30 minutes, we'll open it up for questions from the commission, from staff, or whoever, and then we'll go from there. I'll let them introduce themselves as they start their presentation. So we can go ahead and get started if you all are ready.
I feel like I just rose out of the podium, so my apologies there. First of all, I want to thank you. Do we need to do a sound check so we make sure the streaming folks can hear me? We're in good shape. All right, fantastic. All right.
Thumbs up in the closet.
We got the thumbs up from the closet. So first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come in and speak with you today. My name is John Cody. I'm the Director of Landscape Architecture and Planning for Bayer Becker. My family moved to Danville in 1976. My parents still live in my childhood home on Boone Trail in Green Acres. My grandmother was a retired teacher from Hogsett Elementary School. My aunt graduated from Danville High School and Center College and began her teaching career at the Kentucky School for the Deaf. My dad, upon being released from the Army, decided to come back and settle and practice medicine here in Danville. I'm sorry? Yes. I'm going to multitask here, hopefully very successfully. So you got the, yeah. Back to the family picture, right. All right, so I'm a proud alum of Jenny Rogers, which I understand is no longer in service. Bate Elementary School, a proud graduate of Danville High School in 1988 and Center College in 1992. And I feel like I had an opportunity to experience Danville from beginning to end, to where we can go from an educational standpoint. The chance to give back to the city of firsts, where I had so many of my firsts, is a chance of a lifetime. And this is, after all, my hometown. When I thought about the opportunity that lies squarely in front of you today, I realized very quickly that we needed to be strategic in handpicking the right consultants to address this particular opportunity. We needed consultants with a diverse yet complementary skill set to execute what we're trying to get accomplished. And I'm very excited to present this outstanding team of designers that focus on unique and engaging spaces, not just ordinary places. We focus on long-lasting relationships, and those relationships allow us to be very nimble in addressing projects of various scales and complexity. My company, Bayer Becker, has been in practice for over 50 years, and we have established a reputation for quality that we believe is unparalleled in the industry. We will be your primary consultant, so we're going to be the liaison for you through the course of this, and I will be your project manager. So you will be seeing and hearing from me through the course of the project. We offer surveying, civil engineering, traffic engineering, landscape architecture, and planning services at Bayer Becker. With me today are Chris Manning and Jessica Lester, and I'll let them kind of introduce themselves and their companies.
Good evening. I'm Chris Manning, co-founder, principal, and landscape architect with Human Nature. Grew up in Glasgow, Kentucky. Maybe some of you have heard of Glasgow. Attended the University of Kentucky, graduated from there, and then I taught there for 12 years before starting my own company. We're based in Cincinnati. I live in northern Kentucky in Fort Thomas. Maybe you've heard of Fort Thomas, another similarly sized town. But Human Nature is an environmental planning, landscape architecture firm. We started in 1995, and our primary focus was from day one and continues to be parks and open space and public open space systems, greenways, trails, preserves, sustainable design, green infrastructure. That's our focus. And we focus on that because we really believe that that's what makes communities unique and special. And that's where the inspiring design comes from. And so I look forward to talking to you more about that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica Lester. I'm with Turner Construction. We've been in business since 1902, started out as a concrete firm by Henry Turner, and over the last 120 years, Turner's grown into one of the top general contractors across the nation. But when you work with us, you really get a local feel because in addition to having over 6,000 employees worldwide, we have a robust network of local offices so that when you work with us, you're going to be working with people who can tap in to those vast resources and knowledge base and technical, historical data, but know the nuances of the local communities and have ties to those communities. So we live, work, and play in the communities where we're doing our projects, and we have a vested interest in making these projects successful both as an end result and during construction. So I grew up in Bergen. I was born here at Danville from McDowell, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to be able to come back and be part of a project that's really going to enhance the community. So I'm very excited about this.
Also listed but not represented here at the podium are Hub & Weber. Hub & Weber is a Kentucky-based architecture and planning firm. They are outstanding visionaries and artists, and their sweet spot is creating striking and interesting projects that are functional. So we don't lose track of what the day in, day out activity might be, but something authentic, relationship-based community type of firm. And then our final participant is KLH. KLH, Coors, Loneman, and Heil, is a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering firm, also a Kentucky-based firm, and we've been very fortunate to collaborate with them through the years. Some of their notable projects are Washington Park, Ziegler Park, Great American Ballpark, and the Kentucky Horse Park. So we're very fortunate to have them as part of our team.
So wanted to spend a little bit of time talking to you about philosophy, specifically design philosophy, because believe it or not, different firms approach design in different ways. And as I lecture and do projects around the country, one of the things I've learned is that park design in particular is practiced in three primary ways. What we show on the left there is what you see the vast majority of parks are, and it has a very sort of quantitative and functional approach to it, where we need 3 basketball courts and 4 baseball fields and a walking track, and so you sprinkle those in the land that you have, and you connect them with some curvy roads and paths, and you call it a day. And that is a very efficient way to design a park. And again, I think you'll see probably 80-90% of the parks in America are designed that way. And one of the things that always, I talk to people about is there's not a lot of magic in that, and there's probably not a lot of you in that. And when I say you, I mean your community and what makes you unique and special. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, you get signature design, signature park design. So there's a really small percentage of designers out there that have developed a recognizable style, and you hire them to get that style. And so there's a few clients that want that too. They say, I want that signature style, I want that name on my park, and so I'm going to hire that firm, small amount. We don't fit into either one of those categories. We fit into a third category that we like to call place-specific design, and these are just a couple of images, but International Friendship Park, for example, this was designed around our partnership with 7 sister cities along the Ohio River. And so what you see there is a braided network of trails that was inspired by a friendship bracelet. And there are charms on the bracelet that are the special events and public art features along that way. The gardens are designed to celebrate our 7 sister cities and the cultures and the traditions of those different partners that we have. Some of the images that you see where we try to address this issue of place specificness at every scale. To the bottom left, like where we worked with a local artist, Rookwood Pottery on Washington Park, to do some custom designed tiles that went into the entry columns of the park. They were custom designed to be celebrated. Paving patterns can be more than just concrete. They can express history, they can express music, art. And again, we put a lot of emphasis on design for everyone, which we're going to talk about, all ages, all cultures. And so when we talk about place specificness, it's about getting to know you and what makes you unique and special, and then how do we express that in park design. So it's one of the reasons, one of the main reasons we get hired is that uniqueness.
So in order to engage place-specific design, we have to know who we are designing for. And so what makes us, Danville, unique and special? Well, if you go to the website, it will tell you we're the city of first, that we're the birthplace of the bluegrass. And there's a list of things that have transpired through history that we can stake claim to. The first capital of the state, the first courthouse, the first U.S. post office west of the Alleghenies. Ephraim McDowell, of course, has had a prominent role in our community. And we've got the Kentucky School for the Deaf. And with that history, we have key landmarks that make us unique. The Willis Russell House, the Ephraim McDowell House, the Constitution Square, Pioneer Playhouse, and if you're into Raintree County, the Nelson Rhodes House. And when I look along what is now Main Street, I have Main Street from my childhood in mind. So I think about Greider's Pharmacy, that I used to grab ice cream with my uncle from Jim's Supply Store, that I got my first bike. The Hub Frankel building, which we were talking about earlier, when it was a department store. And of course, Burke's Bakery, which, you know, I still hit when I come back in town to visit mom and dad. And we have a rich tradition of athletics and recreation in Danville. If you look at the success we have on the fields at Boyle County, Danville High School, and kids that go on to compete at Center College, it's the proving ground in our parks that provide them the opportunity to hone their skills so they can do that. So the guys like Donnie Red and Jacob Tammy and Chester Ford, and if you want to go over to Harrodsburg, Craig Yeast, we'll throw him in there as a Kentucky guy. But that foundation is something that provides us, or actually identifies us as an active community. So Parks and Rec, especially over the last 2 years, becomes critically important to sustaining those opportunities for the folks that we have. And if you really think about it, though, it's not really athletics and education that spurs us. It's a pioneer spirit, right? So if we think about our predecessors like Ephraim McDowell, Bunny Davis, Willis Russell, and most recently for me, Steve Powell, we have folks in our community that spur progress. And that's an exciting thing that I think defines us.
So going back to place-specific design, I just want to talk about, you know, the role that park design can play in community building. And in particular, park design as brand and culture, park design as placemaking, as an art form, and as a catalyst for transformation. So, yeah, next. Park design as brand and culture. I wanted to give you a couple of examples. You know, one of the things that we get asked a lot is, why do all of your projects look so different? And the reason is, it's not about us. It's about you, right? And so a couple of case studies here. So the city of Fort Thomas, we've been doing their parks and rec planning for quite a long time, and I would encourage you to talk to them. They're very similar in a lot of ways, and I think there would be some good feedback there. But we worked very hard to kind of capture a vocabulary of their parks and streetscapes that was fitting their history, their historic buildings, but also their residential nature. They're a residential community, and so a lot of the structures drew cues from the residential architecture. So it feels very much at home and Fort Thomas specific. Very different from that, by Dayton, we worked on the restoration of an old Olmsted Park, Hills and Dales Park, that was designed back around the turn of the 20th century, 19th to 20th century. And there were a lot of sort of Adirondack-style cues from the Olmsted plan originally that had been lost throughout the years. So we worked very hard to kind of bring those back and celebrate those, but also bring in the sustainability of the 21st century. So we were using native hardwoods, we were using recycled shingles, we were doing stormwater BMPs, so all the things that sort of made it current, but it felt like it was from that era. So again, Very unique, very different, but very place-specific, part of the brand and culture of the community. And then placemaking. So for us, parks are the living rooms of the community. They're places where everyone's welcome and where we celebrate our culture, whether that's athletics or heritage festivals or whatever that may be. Placemaking and gathering and coming together is part of what parks do. You know, they bring us together as a community and they represent our civic spirit. And so we take that very seriously, and we do a lot of thinking about that and what sort of gatherings might we have here, and let's do some scenario planning, and what does that look like? You know, how do we design those events, design the park with those events and those activities in mind, in addition to athletics and other things that are more typical. Next. And then as an art form, you know, for me as a landscape architect and as a professor of landscape architecture, we really work hard to practice landscape architecture, but also park design as an art form. And so the roots of landscape architecture actually come from painting and literature. And so when we're looking at a site, we think about it like a painting. And we really think about the creation of space and experience. And so again, it goes a little bit beyond sprinkling program elements in a site and connecting them with paths. It really has a much more experiential kind of feel to it. And it's not intended to sound cerebral or anything. It's just thinking about parks in a deeper way. And then as catalyst for transformation, you know, whether it's a large park like Washington Park that was a strategic investment that stimulated hundreds of millions of dollars of investment around it, to a very small example like the one in Fort Thomas, where very modest strategic investments in Tower Park stimulated the redevelopment of some historic homes next door. So it's like looking at that public-private partnership of how does a city make strategic investments in parks and streetscapes and open spaces and trails, greenways, and then how does that stimulate and partner with the private sector so that the community is healthy and vibrant and growing.
As we begin to think about the next steps, it's very important for us to think about the trends in parks and recreation design. What we're seeing across the country is a consolidation of programs and services. So parks are being asked to house after-school programs, senior planning, potentially disaster relief, bringing these facilities together to be more efficient in how we serve our constituency. We have to think about the impact of technology because parks, like cities, are becoming smarter and our users are becoming smarter. So how do we use technology in creative ways to make sure that we are communicating effectively? Things that could be involved would be air and water quality, potentially surveillance. But imagine someone being on a trail and logging that there's a maintenance thing that maybe could be addressed. So it's critically important to think about that. And whether you believe in climate change or not, it's clear that our environment is changing. The amount of rainfall that we're getting per year, the heat indexes, et cetera, are changing. So we have to keep in the back of our mind those types of items as we design. Micromobility devices, I don't know if that's hit Danville yet, but the Birds and Limes of the world have hit Cincinnati, and the impact has been that the scooters are being consolidated at the entrances of the park as people get there. And whether or not we recognize that the driverless delivery system that Domino's is testing means that a 400 or 500 pound driverless vehicle could be seen on our pathway system. So how do we design that and how do we regulate that? From a parks and recreation standpoint, it's something that we need to keep at the back of our mind. Non-human parks, dog parks, one of the biggest growing trends in the country. And by the way, those folks are really organized and very sophisticated in their communication about how and when and what the demands might be. But probably the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart is the equity of services and features. So our community is a diverse one. And our park system needs to be the fabric that weaves our community together, that supports our consolidation and our unity as a group. In other words, it has to be designed for everyone, for all ages, abilities, and certainly all cultures. And I am doing a poor job here.
So we wanted to use another kind of case study, Ziegler Park in Cincinnati. It's where Over the Rhine and Pendleton neighborhoods kind of come together, and Over the Rhine's a very vibrant, well, they're both vibrant historic neighborhoods, but Over the Rhine has Main Street Corridor, which is a entertainment district, and right next to that is the Pendleton neighborhood, which is a residential district. And so kind of finding that balance, and again, listening to those voices. One of the things we're going to talk to you next about is process. And so we work very hard to design a process where all voices are heard, all voices are valued, everyone's treated with respect, and then they see their input reflected in our designs. So we're very serious about community input, and we design a process that really reflects that. And so Ziegler Park, what you'll see is kind of a left brain, right brain plan, the left brain relating to Main Street, and the right brain being more passive and relating to Pendleton. And again, kind of striking that balance. We talk a lot about a balanced diet, just like your doctor talks to you about that. Having that balanced diet of active and passive is really important in parks. And so we'll talk more about that too as we go through the design process. Sorry, I should be turning the pages. So what makes a collection of parks a system? And this is really important. So, I mean, it's one thing to have a collection of great parks, and certainly you're well on your way to having a great collection of parks. One of the things that makes it a real effective system is the connective tissue that you have. And the connective tissue has a lot of different layers to it. It's sidewalks, it's trails, it's greenways, it's blueways, it's natural systems. And so, you know, working with communities over time, you can really think about how do we connect our park system, how do we connect our assets in the community, schools, churches, historic sites, into a network that's equally accessible to everyone. You know, it's a challenging goal, but it's one to work on over time. And I think it's a great opportunity for Danville because you have such a great constellation of assets. That's something that we could talk more about if we are fortunate enough to get this project. And with that, I think we're going to process.
So how do we get there? As we get started, we have to make sure that we adhere to some fundamental design principles. For us, cultural and community appeal is critically important. That speaks to authenticity. Does it really speak to who we are as a community? Design and materials must be thought through so that they express the vision, support that authenticity that we focus on, and there have to be signature moments or elements, things that set us apart from other communities that we can be proud of, that our community members and residents can be proud of, but also draw the interest for potential funding sources in the long run. As we begin the awareness phase, that's really letting the site speak to us, right? Assembling the base data that we need. That could be old survey data, GIS data, certainly older studies. We need to make sure we get boots on the ground to understand the relationship of the land to what our proposed use is. We need to make sure that we understand the opportunities and constraints that each site, regardless of size, offers to us. And most importantly to us is open and transparent communication. We always advocate that there is a steering committee composed of key stakeholders that stay engaged through our process so that there is no surprise at the end.
And then also part of this awareness phase and the exploration is to develop some concept alternatives. And again, this is where we test ideas, we test program, We test the relationship between different elements, and we have a lot of different visualization tools that we can use during that process. But it's a great time to give you a range of ideas and let you respond to those. And then we pick the strengths and weaknesses of each one, and we synthesize the strengths, and we eliminate the weaknesses into some sort of preliminary plan. Then we start to engage Turner and others into costing that, budgeting, and talking about implementation. And the vision phase is where we synthesize the best ideas into a cohesive plan, and we develop that cost estimate and the implementation strategy, and we start to go into implementation and final approval and things like that. And these 3 steps, awareness, exploration, and vision, apply no matter what scale we're working at. So it could be a system-wide conversation that we're having, it could be a site conversation that we're having, or it could be one feature in a site. It's a similar kind of 3-step process where we go through these to get you to a final result that's very exciting and unique and special for Danville.
So Turner is a builder, but we're also a consultant. We have a lot of experience on the back end of building, but I work in our pre-construction department. So what we like to do is get involved early. The earlier that we can give advice and understand the goals and the vision and those special elements of the project, the more we can figure out how to, at the end of the day, be able to put out a deliverable that matches as closely with what you want to be as possible. So we don't want you all to go through a lot of time and effort with your design team to put something out to bid, and then a contractor comes in and maybe it's not on budget, it's not on schedule, logistically it can't happen, and then you have to spend more time re-envisioning what you want. From a watercolor sketch or a block diagram, we can use historical data of parks that we've done in the area and across the country to figure out ranges of dollars of where we're going to be, the difficulties or successes we've had with different materials from a constructability standpoint, and from keeping certain parts of possibly existing park areas that we're going to be expanding or renovating open for certain key events, to make sure that we are minimizing the negative impact on the community as we're working towards bringing an enhancement to the overall. So what we look for is phasing and breakdown of packages, both from a contract standpoint and from a bid packaging in the market, so that we can maximize the draw that we're going to get from competition of local small minority businesses. If you have a master plan that touches 50 different sites in the city, that might be too much for some of your local contractors to handle, but if you split that up and everybody gets a piece of the pie, it's a win-win for the community, for us, and for the people who are going to be living here. And it's going to have everybody be more invested in that project, where you can take your kid down and say, hey, I worked on this and I built this, and I always found that really cool. My grandfather was in construction and he would show me the things that he built, and maybe that was one of the things that pushed me this way as I got out of school. So we've been very successful in the phasing, both from a planning standpoint of how we're going to break up projects. Some of those downtown projects that have been talked about, Ziegler Park, Washington Park, we understood that maybe we had a schedule constraint, so we want to make sure the design team has the appropriate amount of time to get done, so we can say this is done and we know we can get started on it now, and overlapping those time frames. And you wouldn't necessarily have that with a standard design bid build strategy, where you didn't have a builder on the team bringing that expertise that we have. We're also very good with working with the building department for permitting and understanding how that would go together, because it might not be standard if we don't have a fully complete master plan design. And we have been successful in completing these without any issues of subcontractor claims, budget issues, or schedule issues. So we are very excited to hopefully bring this to your project.
Once we understand the phasing, then the next piece of this is implementation. And what we pride ourselves on are thorough and accurate documents. Now, I will tell you that there is no perfect set of documents, but we have to pay close attention to the small details that are going to give us the greatest chance for success. we also need to make sure that whatever we put out is constructible. And it has to culminate in something that's enduring, right? It has to be something that we can appreciate, withstands the test of time, and is not obsolete in 5 years' time. We also find, though, that most people walk away. As soon as the shovel is out of the ground, the ribbon is cut, they're finished. But in our opinion, that's when things just get started. We have to operate the facility and listen to the users to see if there are opportunities to enhance the next project. We always have to keep moving forward. Have in the back of our mind that there's no perfect widget out there, but there's always an opportunity to make the next step forward to get there. With that, I'd really like to open up the floor for questions. I think we're probably right at the 30-minute time frame, and yeah, so we'll open up the floor.
Thoughts, questions, comments? One of your pictures, I'm wanting to know early on, was that at the junction of I-64 and I-65 in Louisville?
No, it was not. I'm not sure which photo you're talking to, but we didn't have.
It was one of the first ones, but neither here nor there. It appeared to be.
Which one was that?
Go back. The first.
Oh, the signature design. No, I think that was this one.
No, it's not the one. That one.
That is adjacent to downtown Louisville.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and
64 to 70.
Yeah, that's a George Hargraves designed park.
Yeah.
We've worked quite a bit with George, particularly at the University of Cincinnati, and have a lot of respect for him. And he's one of those designers that's developed a signature style, and people hire him to get that. You know, and it's like having a Van Gogh, right? But it's different than the designer being more of a facilitator and translator and making it about you. So one of the things we like to do is just to talk about the difference. And it's a choice that you get to make. I mean, it's your city, it's your preference. But there are very different philosophies about how you approach park design, and you get different outcomes depending on that philosophy. So.
Don't everybody speak at once.
I know we threw a lot at you. You know, I can say it's a little unclear exactly what the strategy is in terms of, are there some big system-wide things that we want to talk about, or are there some site-specific things? You know, you have your 2018 master plan and a lot of good thinking behind that. And we just want you to know that, first of all, we have a lot of history of working together, and that we also will work with you on projects at every scale. So there's no project too small, seriously, and there's no project too large. And so Turner and us, we built Washington Park, you know, $42 million. Ziegler was $33 million. We're working on Central Parkway right now. It's $20 million. Working on the Art Museum, which is probably up to 10 million.
Yeah.
But we also do projects that are a few $100,000. And particularly with Fort Thomas, I mean, bite-sized pieces, right? Rubbing two nickels together. And so we like that. We like that range, and it keeps us honest, and we become partners with
How
the
long have you
community.
taught at UK?
I taught there for 12 years, from 88 to 2000.
So Josh, express to them what
Yeah,
we're trying to accomplish.
I was going to give you all opportunity. One of the things that's kind of a high priority for us that could be part of this project is an aquatic facility. So I wanted to let you all maybe talk about your experience with aquatic facilities.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that we did with this particular presentation and our team was we put together a core team. And there's going to be a whole list of specialty consultants that we'll need depending on the project. And aquatics is one of those. So the most recent aquatic project that we did was Ziegler Park. State-of-the-art, Turner built it, spray ground, swimming pool, the whole bit. We're also working on the Finley Community Center right now in Cincinnati, which is going to be about a $30 million community rec center with aquatics as part of that as well. So with aquatics, as with like stream restoration or something like that, we have a whole network of specialty consultants that we would call in to supplement and collaborate with the core team. So it really depends on the nature of the aquatics that you're talking about, that we would hand select sub-consultants that would work under us, under our team, under this core team to address that. So.
In addition to aquatics, anything else that,
I think they touched on a lot of what the other items, you know, it's going to be a lot of small bite-sized pieces, like you said, for a lot of the other projects. I think the other major item might be Jenny Rogers. You know, the city purchased that as, you know, we don't have a vision for it yet. The firm that gets this project will help us find a vision for it. So I think but you all touched on some of those kind of thoughts as you went through your presentation, but you can add to that if you'd like to.
And that's kind of what I was going to say is we have a little bit of everything. We have a large piece of land that I guess would expand Millennium. We have Jenny Rogers, and then we have all these other smaller and neighborhood parks to kind of build back up, but also possibly some new parks, implementation of that. And our Splash Park has been a huge success. So yeah, we kind of have a little bit of everything, and then in my mind, we need to connect all of that, and our trails need to be connected, and so that's, I guess, the big picture.
is that the big picture?
Okay. Yeah, that was my question. So we're looking for somebody for everything, not just the aquatics, but all the other little parks. Jenny Rogers, okay, thank you.
Well, since you said that, this is a little difficult for me to kind of get my head around, I guess, is because I know all of these firms have done work everywhere, but I don't know what they're going to do here. And I know we have to get to that point, but that's a little hard for me to vision, I guess. And I know we want something unique, I guess. I don't quite know how to say it. I don't quite know how to say what I'm trying to say. I guess I might have wanted to see some ideas off the top of their heads, or if they've driven around town, or.
Yeah, I think when I was talking to the teams about
We're
what
not
to bring to us.
engineers, Josh.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to tell them how to do that, because we're not close to that point yet. We have a
Right.
lot of questions to answer before we can get real site specific about projects. And
Right.
I think the goal tonight is to kind of look at the teams that present to us, and think about, okay, this team is going to drive that process for us as far as where do we put some of these facilities? What do these facilities even begin to look like? We are just scratching the surface of what this is going to be. So I think, I don't. It's hard to find a technical way to decide which of these firms will be the best. It's going to kind of be how you feel. Like, that sounds. I mean,
Okay.
it's not a very engineering thing to say,
Right.
That
but
I can do.
it is kind of which team will you look forward to working with on this project? Because it's going to be a long-term, large,
Multi-phase.
relationship. Yeah,
It's going to be
Well,
multi-phase.
what's their approach and what's their philosophy,
Right.
and they've addressed that.
Yeah.
I was going to say to the presenters, thanks for a great presentation. And to my fellow commissioners and staff, I only wrote down about 7 or 8 words from all the things that you presented to us. And those are the key things that I would ask us to continue to focus on. The first one you brought about place-specific design, and that was just really on target. But then you also talked about connectivity, and we've been saying connectivity in this community for a long time. And then parks for everyone, and you mentioned the word equity. And then the last one was active and passive areas in a complete system. So those were the key takeaways for me for your presentation. So I want to thank you for bringing those terms to our forefront tonight, since you are going first tonight. So good job.
So you're welcome. Hopefully, our goal here tonight actually was to present exactly what you said, our philosophy and how we would attack this. I think, keep in mind that we do have folks who are local, who grew up here, who understand our community. Now, granted, maybe from afar now, but I'm in Danville periodically. So I've appreciated the strides that have been taken forward, that the city has taken forward. I mean, I remember a dry city, you know, who remembers that? But what a transformation and what opportunities came from just that one act, right? Restaurants that could survive, well, hopefully surviving still over the last year and a half, but critically important to the evolution of what's happening. I know that there was a study for Main Street and what to do with that. I also saw that the parklets have disappeared, I think, and gosh, you know, we're seeing that come online and over the Rhine, and it's been transformative for that particular area over the Rhine in Cincinnati near our office. But those parklets are actually, even though the initial thought is it's going to hurt the businesses because the approximate parking goes away, the numbers are telling us that the businesses are more successful because now you have walking traffic that stop and peruse, and it's becoming almost like the outdoor mall. So I think that there have been some really positive trends that have taken place in Danville, and I'm excited. I'm excited about the opportunity to come back and give something to my home, my hometown. That's something you don't get to do very often, to bring back your talents. And so for me, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, like I said. I'm passionate about it. I'm proud that I grew up here and that this is the foundation upon which I've built my career. And so I do appreciate the opportunity to stand before you. I can promise you, no one's going to fight harder for you and our community than I am. There's no one who's going to do that, who's not going to have your best interest at heart. Because ultimately, I come back. I come back here, I see it, I live it, I experience it.
Maybe you can fight with the state of Kentucky and Department of Transportation to get our parklets back.
We collaborate with KDOT quite a bit. We just recently finished the Disabled American Veterans National Headquarters and got to coordinate with them because we have a 120-foot flagpole. So we had to deal with CVG and KYTC and I said KDOT, that's not right. KYTC, Transportation Cabinet, hold me to that one. Right, but we deal with them on a daily basis. We are the city engineer for Cold Spring, Kentucky. So we deal with that. We play in that arena, and that's the expertise that my firm brings to what I believe is a group of experts that's unparalleled. I've been really fortunate in my career to work with the best of the best. And what a great chance for me to bring those people here to benefit us, to benefit my parents, our constituency, our neighbors. And that's the opportunity that I get excited about. So, sorry, that's my soapbox.
He's been so excited all week for this moment, so it's great.
Where's your mom and dad living now?
They're on Boone Trail.
Still?
They're still on Boone
Same
Trail.
house?
Same house.
We're getting ready to have dinner together.
Yeah. So we moved, actually our first house was on Hudson Avenue, just down the street from the high school, and we were there for about a year. And then moved into our hometown, or my childhood home, on Boone Trail. They've been there ever since, and to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure we're ever getting them out at this point.
Not at this stage.
Not at this stage, but yeah, so they're still there. So the water park, the splash pad that you're talking about, is right down the street. I mean, I used to run by there. Don't run anymore at 52, the knees won't handle it. But, you know, that was, and what a transformation there compared to what was there before the expansion, right? I mean, hello? Are we still live?
Yeah, you can keep them, yeah.
Tell your,
I can keep talking, but now I'm in the dark. I can't see anything. So anyway, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, we're still in town.
tell your mother and father hello.
I will do that. Thank you.
And we'll drop by for dessert.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
sorry?
be- Yeah, have dessert ready, we'll be there.
Yeah,
be
we'll
there.
have
All right.
dessert.
Sounds like a plan.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Yep, thank you.
Mayor, we may want to take a break
I
while
was
we
gonna ask if we
transition
can take a
groups.
break
and-
while they're switching. Okay.
5 minutes. All for joining us. As I said earlier this afternoon, evening, these are bittersweet times for us because we get to see neat things and new ideas, and we get to salivate over that. And so that's the sweet part. The bitter part is we got to make a decision tonight.
Yeah.
And so that's like I said before, that's why we get paid the large dollars to do this. So, but we're familiar with one of you, clearly, and we're glad to have you here. Always a pleasure, Monica.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll begin. Everyone ready?
Certainly.
All right. Well, we're going to talk to you about a few things tonight. We're going to reintroduce ourselves. There are some new faces in the room. We're going to talk to you about how we know parks. Parks is our business. All four of us do parks and recreation work in some form or another and have for many, many years. So we're going to talk to you about that. We're going to talk specifically about the city of Danville and what we think we can do for the city of Danville. We're going to talk about the why, the what, the how, and the who of our team. Our motto is Branstad Carroll enhances community and quality of life. We have been a part of enhancing the community of Danville for over 30 years, and we hope to keep doing that. A little bit of history on the side. We're not going to talk about ourselves very much because we submitted that in our proposal response. So we'll just leave that there. We are national planners. We're recognized leaders in recreation. All of us are consultants to other architectural engineering firms in some capacity or another. So we're very well known in the region, in this half of the country, actually. We know Danville. Pat Hoagland, before he joined Branstad Carroll, when did you join us? 82? 89? Okay. Well, that's right, because in 88, he did the first Parks Master Plan for Danville, and then since then, that built, and you can see the timeline of projects that we've completed here for the city, and some weren't mentioned. A lot of small things that we've done here and there, and we just left those off the list. Typically, when we are preparing for an interview like this, we have to make a lot of visits into the community. We go eat at the restaurants, we visit with people, we hang around, and whatever we need to do to become familiar. We didn't have to do that for this presentation because we already are familiar. Now, we did visit, we did drive around and look at sites, we did prepare, but it was in a different light. We didn't have to get out newspaper articles, look on Facebook pages, look at websites to know what's going on here because we are here. And we think that's important to you. Not only do we know Danville, but we know parks. Taking a look at our numbers, this is a counting of all of the things that we have done related to parks, recreation, aquatics, sports, splash pads, rec centers, what else? Trails, planning, amphitheaters, they're all there. And these are impressive numbers, and we're glad to show them to you. And we're going to show you a lot of these types of projects because we realize that the projects that you're wanting to do are undefined. So the first start of the project, Pat's going to talk about, and he's going to sort of talk about his way of deep diving into the master plan work and continuing that, and then helping you prioritize what your first, second, third, fourth, and so on steps are. Millennium Park took 6 phases. So we're here for the long haul. This is also a multi-year, multi-phase project endeavor with lots of different types of projects. And we're going to talk about all of our expertise relative to that and why we think we can help you. So my name is Monica Sumner, and I'll function as the principal in charge on the project. And we'll explain what that means in just a minute. Behind me is a great group of folks. We've all been working together since 2002, except for Phil joined in 2007. So he brings our numbers up, right? The rest of we've all been working together for a very long time. We all have various expertise related to recreation, and what that means to you is you just get very cohesive service. We all sit next to each other on a daily basis and feel that we can provide really consistent and steady service to you. Our delivery model is built around what we call market sector leaders. We all have specialties. For you and for this project, I will serve as your contract representative. So I am here to make sure that your goals are met, that your needs are met, that you're heard. And when you have a problem, I'm the one that gets the phone call. Hopefully when you're satisfied, you also call and let me know. So that's what I'm here for. The bottom picture is a picture of myself and former Judge Executive Harold McKinney. I was leading some public workshops here a couple of years ago, and so that's what that picture is about. And we're each going to talk a little bit about ourselves so you can get to know us a little bit.
Thank you, Monica. My name is Phil Schillforth, and I'm a licensed architect and market sector leader with Branch Carroll for for recreation architecture. And my role with you all will be to act as the project manager, in which I will foster a very strong relationship in participation, collaboration, and interaction. And so I take that very seriously. The bottom right photo, that is me in the highlighter shirt, just this past Saturday at a community engagement event over in Jeffersontown, where we garnered amazing community input on a current project going on. So thankful to be here.
Hello, many of you know me. I'm Pat Hoagland, landscape architect with the firm. I've been with Branch Carroll 32 years and 12 years, working before that. And I'm going to focus on continuity from the master plan. As part of that process, we had a really good steering committee that worked with us that developed a vision for the future for Parks and Recreation Services in Danville, and developed the master plan. So I understand all that my team that works with me directly understands that process, and I want to help you implement that. We want to focus on the vision that you created at that time and see what kind of changes might need to be made. There's some things that have happened since that plan, such as the purchase of the fairgrounds property and the acquisition of the Jenny Rogers building, the school site, that are sort of recommendations from the master plan. Jenny Rogers wasn't so much, and then you've also developed the Parks and Recreation Department under the city. That was one of the recommendations of the plan, so that you have control over what happens within the city, and more than you had before. And I'll also be involved in the engagement. The engagement that took place as part of the master plan process was on a citywide focus and with some of those specific stakeholder groups. Now we're going to be going in talking to those individual neighborhoods about the projects that are going to be in their backyards and close to home. So it'll be important to listen to them as well. And the bottom picture there is me speaking at a conference, and I do a lot of that at conferences all over the country. Charlie, you're next.
Hello, yeah, I'm Charlie Schneider, civil engineer and an aquatics engineer for Branch Carroll. I've been with the firm for almost 20 years now. It'll be 20 years, I think, in November. One thing that I bring into these, especially into the aquatic process, is a thoughtful process. I really like to engage with the owner. I like to talk through all the different stakeholders who are going to be operating and maintaining the facility to be sure that they can get what they want and what they need and be able to work for it in the future. And skilled execution is also important. Working with a team that, like we have for the last 15 years on projects, we really get to know each other. We get to know what we expect and how to work with each other very well. And that gives us the confidence to come up with these innovative solutions. The photo I have at the bottom, that's a conference. We attend multiple national conferences for aquatics. And as you can see there, we like to display some of the solutions we've come up with, and at the same time, we're out there learning all the new trends out in the aquatics. It's a very fun process to go through, and they're great conferences.
We've got an addition to our team that isn't here tonight. That's a staff member of Branch Carroll. It's Tom O'Rourke. He's well known in the Parks and Recreation fields throughout the country. He's a former director for the Parks and Recreation in the city of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and then the Charleston County Park System. He had a $40 million budget with only $9 million in taxes. He knows how to raise money. He knows how to price his programs to fund the programs. So he's also a city council member, and he's got a council meeting tonight. That's why he couldn't be here. And he's the finance chair on that council, so he understands the government side, he understands the Parks and Recreation side, and he'll be helping us with the operations because you can't just build these facilities, because some of these are new to you. You know, you've got the Bunny Davis pool is not going to be the same as a much larger aquatic center. A lot more goes into it in terms of the staffing and the operations, and he'll be able to help with that quite a bit, and Charlie's expertise as well. The staffing that's needed to fund, to be able to staff some of these new facilities, he'll be able to help with. And one of his really strong attributes and passions is equity in the parks. And he's actually speaking at the National Recreation and Park Association Conference twice on equity, diversity, and inclusion in the parks with a team that he's put together. And he's doing a series of 3 6-hour-long seminars up in Ohio on that same topic. So he'll help us with some of that as well. So he's worked on several projects with us. He's actually an employee of our firm now. So that's something we bring to the table that a lot of other firms don't have, is that specific parks and recreation operations background. Oh, stay up here. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the master plan when we did that. Some of you were involved in that, some weren't. But we looked at the park service areas, and in this, you see the 10-minute walk to a park in green, and then a 5-minute drive, and that shows up as brown here. So you start seeing a lot of gaps in the south and the east where there's no service to parks. So that's something that we need to address as part of this process, is that at equity. And then this is a composite service showing the park service areas, but also we mapped the playgrounds, the picnic shelters, the ball fields, the multi-purpose fields, and all those types of facilities. An example is that Butler Drive Park. It shows up as a park with a 10-minute walk to it on the other map, but there's hardly anything there. So there's really not much service. So it stays in the red, whereas the blue areas are better served by parks and facilities. So again, it shows some of those gaps in the service. Now, this is a big one. We prepared a map to try to highlight some of the recommendations for the master plan and some of the things that should be done at your various parks, along with some of the new opportunities. We conducted over 20 community engagement processes as part of the master plan, had over 1,100 surveys returned. And from that, we found out people wanted aquatics. They wanted a new aquatic center. Bunny Davis wasn't good enough for them. They want your parks upgraded, your fields, your playgrounds, everything else upgraded. There's underserved areas that need to have parks and facilities and programs. Some indoor recreation opportunities. And we think that Jenny Rogers is a perfect place to try to do some of those recreation programs. Connectivity throughout the community is huge. Everybody's talked about that as part of our process. And then more programs and events. You've got a small Parks and Recreation department, but people want more things that bring the community together, more activities like that. So you see in this drawing, the proposed new parks in the blue, so a North Neighborhood Park, a West Neighborhood Park, and a couple in the South, a Neighborhood Park, and then a community park in the South area. The recommendations, for Millennium Park and the fairgrounds site. Having the addition of the fairgrounds really opens up a lot of other opportunities on that site. One possibility is an aquatic center, and the other site is looking at the wellness center. Behind that is a possible location for that. So we'll evaluate those. And then the Jenny Rogers School is another amazing opportunity. And we're working on a process in that town that I grew up in northern Ohio. They just bought a school that was closed, and it's almost L-shaped school, just like Jenny Rogers. And we're looking at how we can renovate that school, how it can be used. We've already analyzed the capacity of the spaces, what needs to be done to the restrooms for ADA accessibility and those kind of things. The next step is to see who all the partners are that want to get involved in this. So again, without getting into all the details of the other parks that are in purple there, but there's a lot of different recommendations that were in the master plan that need to be prioritized as part of this process. And another innovation that we've developed, and I think we should look at it here, is a social needs and conditions index. We first did this in 1997, 98 for the city of Cincinnati, but it looks at every census tract in the city. You see all the elements on the left, income, education, unemployment, single-family homes, crime, and identifies those areas in the city that need social services the most. You probably know most of it already, but this will document some of that as well. It was interesting. We had done this, 97, 98 in the city of Cincinnati. Years later, one of our staff members, I think it was Larry Branstetter, met the city manager on just a cold call, sales call, and in his office, the book was open on his desk. He was using it for grants for other kind of programs. It shows not just where parks and recreation are needed, but where social services are needed and where people would benefit the most from it. So it's a very valuable tool.
So, I got it.
Sure.
Yeah, we've been talking about the social needs index for many, many years. And now in societies, we have open discussions. We should have more open discussions about equity, diversity, and inclusion. But with this model, we've actually been talking about that, trying to meet the needs of underserved populations for years with different parks and recreation projects. Parks and Recreation can go so far for bridging the gaps between the underserved people in the community. I am not the person, we are not the people to lead that conversation, but we sure want to listen and be a part of that and try to offer some solutions and feedback that help you meet those unmet needs.
So one unique, several unique factors about Branch Center Carroll is our process. And so we are extremely committed to your schedule. And so we have staff will be dedicated specifically to you. We're committed to sustainability. We were the first firm to complete the LEED Gold CAECO building, and then the Wolfe County Judicial Center's first courthouse in the state to receive LEED certification. We're also extremely committed to your interests, and we do not take that lightly. Everything that we do is to benefit you. We're dealing with taxpayer dollars, and we understand that's extremely important, so we need to make the right decisions. The process, kind of moving into the right side of the page, the process of planning, as Pat had mentioned, the community engagement, setting priorities, and then scheduling and phasing all really develop that original plan of how we're going to move forward. Budgeting is an underlying topic really in all of these items that would need to be considered, because here again, we're dealing with taxpayer dollars and we need to be responsible. Moving into programming, programming is really derived from the planning work that is done in the first step. And so the recreational programs drives the architectural program, or architectural components, and then the engineering elements as well. And so then we go into this green portion, the design, where we have the different levels of design, schematic design, design development, and then ultimately preparation of contract documents, which are then constructed here in the gray section.
Now for a little fun. We've talked about the who and the how. Now we're going to show you the what. So let's imagine what we could have here. So we're going to show just a variety of images in this gallery section of parks and rec centers and community centers and rehabbed buildings and all the things that we could imagine.
You see, examples of a Peace Park that was up there, an amphitheater, you had tennis courts, ball fields, playgrounds, a wide variety of facilities that we've designed.
Recreation centers are all unique. They're all specific to the communities that they serve. These are just a few examples of different aesthetic, thinking about the context, materials, location, things of that nature. This next slide really focuses on the interior. And as I had mentioned before, that's really generated by the programs that will be offered in each facility. Community centers are somewhat similar to recreation centers, but then again, they're very different in the same manner. Here we show a lot of adaptable space, community room spaces. We even take advantage of corridors, entry corridors, and pathways that could be turned into an ad hoc space. Adaptive reuse is very important, and when thinking about the Jenny Rogers site, it's something that Branch Center Carroll has definite knowledge on. And so here's just a few examples of some adaptive reuse. The bottom right is an old school turned into apartments. The middle photo with the pink or the purple and the yellow was an old arena that was transitioned into a health and wellness center for a local hospital. And so all of these different variations are all just amazing examples of adaptive reuse. And so thinking about innovations with recreation centers and community centers, we came up with 5 different themes, if you will. And so the first one is programming. As programming is as far as we can take it, that's the answer to the solution. And so whether it be education, fitness, social needs, that's our base in which we need to build our foundation. Technology. One thing that we've learned through this pandemic is technology and all of the different uses. One thing that I think is really interesting is the on-demand health classes, where you don't have to go to a physical location to do a health class. You can just log onto your laptop and do a class in your living room. So that's really interesting. Looking at building controls, building automations, lights, HVAC, different types of controls in that manner is also fascinating. Moving into the bottom left with flexible, adaptable spaces, we need to squeeze as much programming as we can out of these facilities to get the largest return on investment. So multi-use areas, adaptable spaces is key. Moving to the bottom middle, universal design and wayfinding is really something that's important to me. I think it's really interesting in these facilities that when you first come into facilities, you know where to go. You don't have to ask, you just instinctively know. And then the far right, the strategic partnerships for enhanced social services. What are some other outreaches that we could do to really take advantage of what we do? Arts and crafts. Could the Boyle County Library be involved and have an outreach program? Could we have a health partner or a therapeutic recreation where they could take advantage of some of the maybe water or other venues that are available? Volunteers are extremely important. We need to take advantage of them, take advantage of the school system. The opportunities are endless.
Well, you can't do all the programming you want to do by yourself. So these partnerships are going to be a key, especially if you want to try to develop some entry-level or introductory types of classes. Somebody might, take an introductory class at Jenny Rogers Center and then go to the Community Arts Center for more detailed and more advanced classes, as an example.
All right, I saved the best for last. Now we get to the fun stuff. This indoor aquatics, number of photos of different projects we've worked on. The bottom right photo, you may or may not recognize, that's the Whitaker YMCA in Hamburg. That middle bottom photo is a senior living facility in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I think the top left, that's Cleveland Heights University Heights. It's a high school natatorium we did up in the Cleveland area. Well, sorry. Moving on to the outdoor aquatics, that photo on the top right, you can see that's Richmond Aquatic Center. And on the middle left, that's the Frankfurt Juniper Hills Aquatic Center. Those are 2 that we've done in the local area. And of course, Elizabethtown, I think, is the top right and bottom right, Phil, right? Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And then the rest are a few projects we've done up in the Ohio area, too. So this is an example of concept designs in different locations, Ohio, Texas, New Jersey, North Carolina. The key point and the key takeaway here is that when we design a pool, we go out and design a pool for the community we're in. We want to make sure that it's different and that it's right for you and for the uses and the programmings you have suited for it. We skip one?
No, the Juniper Hill example we want to talk about.
Oh, I think that's next.
Oh, it's next, I'm
sorry. Here's a bunch of photos of some splash pads. Y'all are familiar with one. You've built one now up at the water plant. One thing that's very important in splash pads now is making them inclusive. So by nature, by design, splash pads are accessible for handicap just because they're flat, they're on a flat piece of concrete. But really, one of the major trends coming in now is getting that full inclusive to get everybody who has some kind of need or special need to be able to come in here and use these facilities, whether it's adding lights or adding sounds or making sure the water at certain times of the day is not too loud or too rambunctious. So there's different kinds of ways that we're starting to make splash pads really inclusive. And these are a few innovations we've come up with. The Juniper Hill bottom center photo is, it's a handicap accessible water slide. Thanks to the grade of that site, as you can see in the picture above, we were able to really, manipulate the site to our advantage, and it's 100% handicap accessible to all the pools, but to get that slide in there was really a unique feature. And Blue Ash on the right was a very fun, shallow water pool for kids. Lots of things going on there. It was a really fun project to work on.
What's the deepest water?
Deepest water, and that's 3 feet.
So just to wrap up before we open the floor for questions, this is why we do what we do, to enhance people's quality of life with a wide variety of opportunities for health, wellness, exercise, community engagement, talking to their neighbors, all the good things that you want in a community. Danville is a very livable community. Facilities like this become recruiting tools for industry. I'm sure the economic development people would love to show off facilities that enhance the quality of life in the town. But seeing all these families thrive, that's why we do what we do. And with that, we'll let you have questions.
Questions? Comments? Thoughts? I don't know what the RFP contained, but it's apparent to me that there's an emphasis here on the aquatics. Is that a specialty within Branstead or Carroll?
It is a specialty, but we didn't try to emphasize that so much. We wanted to focus on the park planning,
Right.
the buildings, the aquatics, all of it. So Charlie is our in-house aquatics engineer, yes. So we do not hire out for that. In fact, there's several firms that actually use Charlie for a consultant to design their aquatics. So yes, aquatics is a specialty of our firm.
Okay.
Yep. But we try not to be heavy with it because that's not the primary focus necessarily of your work. Your work is very broad-reaching. There's a variety of things that we see that are possible with projects here. But that is one that is a key deliverable that we can offer. Yep.
Anything?
No questions?
Well, just like always, a great presentation. Answer a lot of questions in your presentation.
I'll say the positives I saw. Quick comments. Well, the first book was a little different. I guess this is you guys too, right? Yep. Okay. So I really liked, I guess, budget-wise, the comparisons of the budget and the schedule control. That was something I thought was very important. Of course, the experience with Aquatics was a huge plus with this company. I really liked the forecasts with the attendance and the population, because that's so important.
It is.
What size. I didn't really see that elsewhere. Just so important if you build something too big or too small.
Right.
It's just such a big investment.
Yeah, it's critical. We put a lot of emphasis on right-sizing a facility to make sure that you are providing the correct amount of water and entertainment for the community you're serving. It's very important.
Absolutely.
success.
And then today you added to it, I really like too, I guess Mr. Rourke, about the importance of operations. Anything new to our community, you really have to have that background, know what employees you need, what it will cost. Because some things sound great, but once you build it,
Yeah,
the
you have to
upkeep is
operate it.
tremendous.
Yes, yes.
And that's just as important as building it.
And the capital cost will not be your largest expense.
Right.
It will be in
Right.
maintaining and operating it and staffing it. So.
And the last part I really liked today was the mapping of the social needs index. That was really neat to see what areas are served or underserved and where we need to focus. So anyway. thank you for those
Thank you for the feedback.
items.
Anybody else? Thank you all very much for your time.
Thanks for your time. All right. Appreciate it.
Monica has a short drive ahead of her, and the rest
I
of you
do.
don't.
None of us are going very far. If we didn't carpool.
Richmond.
20 minutes, Richmond, yeah, so,
So we're close.
Thank
And
you all.
I think that's the real benefit of our firm is that this is a project that's going to be done over a long period of time. We'll be here in a hurry. Monica's here every day.
You know, what's nice is you've got a national presence in your backyard.
you just don't know that. Maybe now you do. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank
you.
you.
Early.
Y'all want to take another break? My turn now. glad to have you all with us. This group's tired of hearing me say this, but I will say it to you, that this is a kind of a bittersweet exercise for us. It's sweet in that we get to see a lot of your all's talents and fresh ideas, fresh eyes, and that's invigorating for us. It's bitter in that we've got to make a decision, and it's always tough. But as I've said before, that's why we get paid such high compensations here. But we're very glad to have you. We appreciate what you bring to the table, and I'll shut up so you can go back.
Okay, that sounds good. We appreciate you allowing us to be here to present our qualifications and our team. This is a labor of love for all of us. So my name is Jeff Cantor. I am the principal architect, one of the principal architects with PFGW Architects in Paducah. PFGW Architects has been in business for 57 years. We've got a large footprint in the Western Kentucky region, and then in the Central Kentucky region, had an office in Elizabethtown for a many number of years. And just due to retirement and of that principal, we closed that office. But we've put together a good team for this, and we'll be the point of contact. I will be the principal in charge and the point of contact throughout the entire project. So you don't have to, I'll be the go-between between these guys and the city of Danville and Boyle County. So just going to let each of my team members here introduce themselves and their firms as well. So.
Hi, I'm Mark Thompson. I am with Bacon Farmer and Workman. We are an engineering firm primarily, handles civil, structural, environmental, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, and transportation. We have offices in Paducah, which was the start. We also have offices in Nashville, Lexington, Marion, Illinois, Belleville, Illinois, and Champaign, Illinois. We have done work in all of those states, as well as Arkansas, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, any of those. So I am relatively new with the firm. I've been there just about 2 months. Now, quite familiar with the firm because I hired them. I am the former Parks and Recreation Director in Paducah and was there for 20 years. I've been a Parks and Administrator, either at the superintendent or director level for 40 years. Except there was a brief respite. I wouldn't call it a respite. I was 6 months, I was the interim city manager in Paducah. So kind of have the full view of everything. We're here to be able to share, and that's why they brought me in, not only to work on business development, but to also be that service to cities and communities, to be that person who can actually reach out to the Public Works Director, the Parks Director, and share those experiences. And believe me, I've been, one of my jobs was being the second director in Georgetown and Scott County before they announced Toyota. So I understand what small communities are all about, as well as those up to 50,000 and that sort of thing. So I'm here with Bacon Farmer and Workman, and glad to be here as part of the team.
Thank you.
So my name is Randy Royer. I'm with Hitchcock Design Group. We are a landscape architecture firm. We've got about 40 years of experience helping communities plan, design, and get projects, recreation projects constructed. And we've got offices in Naperville, Illinois, in Indianapolis, and down in Austin, Texas. I am the managing principal in the Indianapolis office.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Philip Parnan. I am an associate principal with Pros Consulting. Prior to being with Pros Consulting, and I did join their team in 2017, I spent 25 years on the public side of Parks and Recreation, including the last dozen as director of a community just outside of Indianapolis. Our firm has done business in 47 states, 7 countries, and we have over $2 billion in assets from our work that have been developed in those communities that we've worked with. In addition to that, we do the full gamut for operations, including maintenance, as well as economic impacts, the financial aspect, and setting up operational plans as well.
Good evening. My name is George Dinas. I'm a studio director over feasibility studies with Councilman Hunsaker. We have been based in St. Louis for over 50 years now. We are aquatics specialists and expertise. All that we do is projects that touch chlorinated water. And so we provide that aquatic insight and knowledge for this project for any of the aquatic related recommendations from the Parks Master Plan.
So hopefully, as you can see, we've assembled a team that has a broad range of experience. And I think the most unique part of our team is the Parks and Rec administrative side that we bring. We were adding up the numbers earlier, and we've got over 75 years of Parks and Rec leadership experience on our team. So we know the shoes and the issues that need to be dealt with because these guys have lived it and done it for so long. So we bring specialized recreation design and consulting knowledge and experience, a proven team with the knowledge of the community. And as we've done our homework and read through the master plan, we've grown to understand the unique challenges that lie in Danville and Boyle County with Parks and Rec. We bring a national perspective with pros and Councilman Hunsaker especially with their work across the nation. We bring solution-driven and budget-conscious design solutions and efforts, and we're trusted partners. And that's one thing that we can confidently say is that 90% of our team has worked together before. We work, PFGW and BFW Markham, about 80% of our projects are with these guys. And then with Hitchcock and Pros, we're working on a large project now in Paducah. And Councilman Hunsaker is our go-to aquatic expert when we have those needs. So we trust each other, we know each other well, and I think that'll translate into a successful project team. Just talking about your project a little bit, I'm gonna let Mark kind of deal with this one some.
Yes, and after looking at the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and we think that's a great first step. Everybody does need a Parks and Recreation Master Plan to get you going in the right direction. But one thing we're going to bring to it is new fresh eyes to it, that we have seen it. We've actually worked with others who've done your master plans in the past. We understand their process. We also have new ideas that we would go through and work with that. We understand that you want to modernize parks. We understand that you've got to improve the connectivity. You've got a great start on some bicycle trails throughout town. Those look great. And we want to enhance the programs and events. I like to think of that as one of my really strengths, bringing that to, because we've built my department over the last 10 years in Paducah, won the State Department of the Year for our class 4 times. So we understand what quality programs are about. And as Pros comes forward and bringing a great idea as far as the management and operation and setting standards for operations. So we know that those are the things that we need to attack, and those are the things that we plan on helping you with.
So the key takeaways from this master plan, and it's a big document. It's a lot to read through. It's a lot to process. It's 3 years old at this point. And so some of the big takeaways from this, improved aquatics rose to the top in every public engagement opportunity. That seemed to be the leading contender for a project. But we know that was 3 years ago. A lot's changed in our world. A lot's changed in our country because of COVID. Our communities have changed. I have no doubt, and I know in 3 years, Paducah has changed. And I would imagine Danville and Boyle County has changed as well. So we want to take a look at these things. Facility development and improvements. As we've toured the parks here and done our own investigation, you've got some great facilities. But as with Paducah, we know that there was a lot of our facilities that just needed some attention, that needed some improvements to ADA accessibility, restrooms. And we see those things, same things here. That's kind of a universal need is those things in parks. And then management and operations. It does a community a disservice to have great parks, but to not have the management and operations to sustain those parks. And so we know that's an issue as well in every community, and that's why we have Phil and Councilman Hunsaker to address those things when needed. So the master plan is a building block. We start with that. So our project approach would be to come in and review the master plan, which we've been doing for the past 2 months. Since this RFP came out, we've been reviewing this document, all 5 of us and more members of our team that aren't here. And we want to review that to see if the findings in it are still accurate, to see if those are still the needs and desires of the community. As I said, we have no doubt that some things have changed, and we want to identify those things. We want to have public engagement with the community to get input from the stakeholders, from the community members about what their needs, what their desires are, what they value in parks and recreation facilities and components, and bring that to the table and discuss that.
We also know that you've acquired new properties.
Yeah, and
So those
yeah.
are things we have to consider.
Yeah, new properties. I think Jenny Rogers, the former Jenny Rogers Elementary, was acquired, and so we know that things have changed even in that respect. And then we want to develop a list of priority projects. Once we get the public input, we want to develop that list and see what rises to the top. We know money is an issue. There's a budget to be adhered to, and so we have to prioritize things. What are some low-hanging fruit that we can identify that would be wins for the city, for the county, for the Parks Department, and get those things taken care of maybe at an early phase, and then start to tackle some of the bigger projects. We want to review operational standards and maintenance standards for current and future park facilities. That's something that after we develop this priority list, we want to know how the operations and maintenance will be affected by those potential projects.
Thank you. So part of what we'd like to start out with is the next set of slides talks about our approach to operations and sustainability. But while we have our own approach, we also customize to the client's needs. So it's not necessarily based on what we're bringing, but it's a combination of our best practices as well as where the client currently is, where your Parks and Recreation Department is as far as their operations. And so we bring to the table the industry's best practices. We like to match those up with the key performance indicators that are needed within a community, and then also operational standards. And that's what's going to ultimately achieve the highest outcomes with the greatest level of satisfaction from the community. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So total cost of ownership is extremely important when you're managing finances, especially those finances of the citizens. So we like to look at total cost of ownership from a capital investment standpoint. What's the capital investment that's being put in initial upfront in order to develop the asset? What does it cost to operate and maintain the asset? And then ultimately the life cycle replacement into account. We kind of equate that to the same aspect as going out and purchasing a car. It's not a smart thing necessarily to purchase a car without knowing what the routine maintenance as well as tires, fuel, and everything is going to cost you in the long run to avoid any financial difficulties. In addition, it's important to identify revenue and funding strategies, looking at all potential opportunities that exist, as well as sponsorships, fees and charges. We refer to that as earned income, along with naming rights, programs and services, partnerships, endowments. All of this is to create a dynamic financial approach to managing the Parks and Recreation system, to where the subsidy levels, if they need to exist, are not in existence and increasing on an annual basis. It's important to make sure that we're managing that from the front end in a proactive manner. With those finances, we approach this from a cost of service. What does it cost you currently to provide an acre of maintaining your parks each year? Obviously, that's compounded with a number of times during a growing season that needs to be mowed, but that's an important component. What are the standards? Are the standards too high for sustainability when the funding is too low, or is it inverted? Also, pricing and fees, is the fee structure appropriate? Are they charging fair market value where it makes sense, and providing those free programs where it makes sense as well too? And then partnerships. We look at that as more of a cost containment. Knowing those things is important to cost containment as well as revenue generation. We take a look at what's potentially being proposed for the park system as well. Is it fulfilling and aligning the department with the community's needs? And are those services too high of a quality, too low of a quality, or just right? Where does that need to be moving forward as well too? And then we can look at that in the form of a 5-year pro forma out as well too, projecting, showing what the trends would be for costs associated with that.
As Jeff mentioned, we want to bring a fresh perspective and building upon that master plan that you all have already completed. And specifically, as he mentioned as well, the popularity of aquatics rose to the top in the community engagement and community surveys that were done during that time. And one of the key recommendations for that was to complete a feasibility study for a new aquatic facility here in Danville. And so we want to use, the front end of this project to do just that, where we, identify the need, we look at the type of facility that you would need, and then we also tie in the long-term operational cost, as Phil was just talking about, specifically to aquatics. So on that community engagement, we want to re-engage with the community. We realize that aquatics is important. We realize that this is, the community's project, and so we want to touch base with them, whether it's the overall steering committee for the city, or maybe it's some open community input meetings, some different aquatic stakeholder groups, knowing that there's a couple of indoor facilities in town as well. There are a couple of swim teams, and so what we want to do through that is to determine the right size for the aquatic facility. And what we see is we see communities, some that underbuild an aquatic facility and they're at capacity too early in the life of the facility. We also see some that overbuild the facility, and then they are, stuck with a long-term subsidy that does not meet their annual expected budget. So what we want to do through our feasibility study process is right-size, this outdoor aquatic amenity for you all. And so that means it allows room for growth. That means it has the best possible financial sustainability model that we can bring in. But it also meets the needs of the community. What do they want to see, knowing that, that there's 75,000 people within about a 30-minute drive time of Danville. This could be something that some other communities drive in to use, but we specifically want to focus on what does the Danville community want to see with this facility. But then also there could be some avenues to make it just a little bit larger, and then, you can attract some out-of-towners, and then you can be a little bit more financially sustainable. So those are all the things that we'll look at through the feasibility study process. Through that process, we use what we call CHART. That's our Councilman Hunsaker aquatic research tool. And we look at all of the different costs that are associated with running an aquatic facility. I myself spent 14 years as a municipal parks and recreation aquatic director. I have similar experience to both Mark and Philip, and so we bring that expertise, not only looking at, what is it going to cost to construct this facility, but also what is it going to cost to operate that facility long term. And so at the end of the day, it's about balance, with your entire parks and rec system, with the aquatic facility in particular, is to making sure that you put in the right sized components for aquatics to, balance out your long-term operational goals, and then also to meet the needs of the Danville community.
So at the end of that, that piece of looking at the operations and maintenance, that's when we move into design and construction drawings. But we don't design anything until we know what we're designing. You know, we want to. That's why we do the research. That's why we do the study, the data gathering, and all of those things before we can design anything. Because right now there's nothing to design. And so that's part of our approach and how we would approach things. So we kind of have this last slide here to, in this section, just kind of a reminder of our steps is just to review the master plan and get some public input, to gather data, to identify those projects and then prioritize those projects, look at operations and maintenance planning for what those projects that we identify, and then we move into the design, construction document phase, and then ultimately construction, and get a facility that or facilities that this community can be proud of. We've kind of followed this very similar model on a project we're currently working on with our team, and it's the Mccracken County Athletic Complex. And this is something that came out of a Parks and Rec master plan that was completed and adopted in, I think, January of 2020 in Paducah. Bacon Farmer Workman led the charge. Mark was the parks director at the time for Paducah. Bacon Farmer Workman led the charge. They hired Branstetter Carroll and us as consultants as part of this team to perform this master plan. And this complex, this project, came out of this master plan. There was identified within the master plan the need to improve existing parks, the need to develop new facilities and improve park amenities. And so out of this master plan, this movement started to do this, and a part of that movement was also to increase sports tourism in our community. And so the Mccracken County Sports Tourism Commission was formed in the fall of 2019, and our team was hired in the spring of 2020 to perform design services for this new outdoor complex. Part of our initial process and just explaining how we worked and how we would work similarly on this project is a research and analysis phase. As we talked about reviewing the master plan that's in place, that's part of the first thing we did as a design team in Paducah and Mccracken County. We took the master plan, we took some other research, and we dissected it to see where do we need to start. We identified sites, or we were given identified sites that the Sports Commission identified for potential locations for this complex. We visited each of those sites. We performed site analysis, research, floodplain investigations, utility locations. All of these items were done in an effort to help the Mccracken County Sports Commission make the best decision, not only for them, but for our community and ultimately our region. This was a very specific need. The program was developed at this time to what amenities we were going to be designing on this site, and that was driven a lot by a report that was done on sports tourism in Mccracken County, and then just national trends and standards that Phil was able to bring to the table, and what works and what doesn't, where the needs are. And so out of that process, a site was identified. Our next step was to perform some schematic design. And our initial step here was to learn about the community. Mark and myself and BFW Markham and PFGW, we live in Paducah. It's our community. We understood the community, but for these guys, for Randy and Phil, they didn't know the community as well. So part of their research, guided by us, was to learn the history of the community, to learn the cultural significance of the community, those things that define Paducah and Mccracken County, much like we would do here. Doing research for this, Bunny Davis had no clue. I assumed wrong. I assumed a female, and I'll just be honest. But once I found out the story, I was just fascinated by this gentleman that accomplished so much in his life. And so those are the kind of things we would do. We want to know your community as well as you do. But because our ultimate solution is going to be custom fit for your community. This isn't a process that we just take and plop another project down in a community because we've done 3 others somewhere else. Our process is to learn your community, to become one with your community, and to design a facility and facilities and solutions for your community that work. We went through this process and issued these schematic design reports and layouts on this site. And then ultimately a master plan was developed for this complex. And we issued that report in February of this year. You know, our approach is custom fit for your community.
So just to really to sum this up, this particular project, it is a very good example of our approach to design and recreation design, and the fact that one size does not fit all. When this project began, you know, I came down from Indiana and listening to some of these meetings, and I'm hearing heads and beds, heads and beds. We want to get, this is all about tourism. And we said, okay, and we started going through our process, and as we went through the process, we were listeners. We were listening to what we were hearing from the community and what we were hearing from community leadership, and as we got through that process, it started to morph a little bit. And then all of a sudden it was not just heads and beds. We've got community, the taxpayers here want to be able to use this facility. And how do we make it, how do we design a facility that we can get heads and beds, but we can also have some place for our residents to enjoy? And we started kind of putting that in the mix in the design. And, you know, ultimately where we came up with a solution that we found one of the sites just happened to be old horse track, Bluegrass Downs, and it was decommissioned. So we said, okay, we can put something here. And oh, by the way, there's a park right next door that has a long history in Paducah. Then it kind of neglected. We put these two things together, we can create something really special that covers the tourism, that covers the local needs as well. And, you know, ultimately we've got, rather than just having one client, which was the Tourist Commission or the Sports Tourism Commission, now the county and the city have come together, having gone through this process with us, and realized, okay, we got to work together on this, and it's a joint kind of approach. And you know, from the get-go, it was that's not what we were hearing. But as we led this process, you find out all kinds of new things when you do that. So one size doesn't fit all, and you know, we approach each one of these projects with, you know, very open mind. So thank you.
And by the way, that project was approved for funding, and Pax Flannery to go into design phase when we get back.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah. As of yesterday, the county, there was a 3-way memorandum of understanding. The county approved it Monday night, the city approved it Tuesday night, and the Sports Commission approved it yesterday afternoon at 1:30. And so it's been a fun process to see how entities with different mindsets, with different visions, with different goals have come together. And it's made me proud of where I live because to see this happen, to see our community come together when things are so divisive in our nation and in our communities. And so we're looking forward to getting back and starting this. And so we wanted to highlight this project. We've done others that are similar, but this one this is one that's going on currently, and is I feel like has a lot of similarities with what's going on here in Danville and Boyle County, and the partnership that can be gained between two entities to bring to the community something that will make it better for generations. This is truly a generational project, and I think where you stand now is truly a project or projects that will affect this community for generations. So with that, would be happy to entertain any questions.
Comments, questions? If I may have misunderstood you, but I thought I heard you say that you all worked in conjunction with Branstad Carroll on a project. Tell me how that works.
do you want to answer
Sure.
that? Because it was your.
It was my project. Over the years, and I've worked with Brand Center Carroll, not only in Paducah, but I've worked with them in other departments that I've worked with. And they're a good firm, believe me. They've done great work. I've worked with Pat Hoagland for many times. But what I see is something that we can move forward and with fresh eyes. Now, how does it work? When we were doing that, we didn't quite go through the process you did. We had known who we wanted. We knew we wanted a little local flavor as well. And Peck Flannery was that. So we went to Bacon Farm and Workman, who was leading design, engineering firm in the state and in the region. And they were willing to take it on to be the primary on it. And they said, who do you want on it? And I said, well, we need local favor, and then we need somebody who's going to be able to do park master plan at that time. At that time, they weren't in the park business. Since I've come on, that we've kind of gone, we're expanding that footprint to provide that service along the way. So from that perspective, we just put together a team, and it came down to negotiations between the entities, the engineering firm, Brand Center Carroll, Peck Flannery, that who got what and how much were they got paid. That was outside of us. We knew how much we were going to pay. So when it comes down to it, we're working together. We work out what happens between us. You pay one entity, and that would be Peck Flannery in this situation.
I'm curious about this city-county sports commission. Tell me what this sports commission is.
This was an idea that came from the Mccracken County Commissioner of course, Paducah has the local visitors and convention bureau, but as another mechanism to gain tax revenue from the hotel motel room tax, the transient room tax, and went through all the legal channels. The commissioner that proposed this is a lawyer, so we knew it was on the up and up, or hoped it was on the up and up. And it was, and so they went through this process, an interlocal agreement because the transient room tax went to the city, it went to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, it went to debt retirement for the Convention Center, the Carson Center, which is our performing arts, and so it was split up among different entities. And so the Mccracken County Sports Tourism Commission was formed by interlocal agreement between the Sports Commission, City of Paducah, and Mccracken County to create this separate county-run tourism commission. So now we have a county tourism commission that focuses on sports, and a city tourism commission that focuses on tourism in all other manner. And so this was a new commission. The fall of 2019 was the first time they met. They were all volunteers. They had no idea what they were doing. By their own admission, not my statement, but by their own admission, they were wet behind the ears, and we were able to walk through this process with them, them learning along with us, because it was a learning process for us too, to help this new entity land on its feet and come out on the other side with a project that's to this point been very successful and that the community is excited about.
And also, just, there was a slight increase in bedroom tax because you had two entities on that. But one of the things that we were doing inside the city is, as separate, to try to get it jump-started, because we knew that was going to be an entity that we were working with. We talked to the county judge, we talked to the mayor and the city manager, and we actually jump-started the process by getting a firm on, that was you all.
Yeah. The city of Paducah wrote the RFQ to select a design firm and was involved in that process before the Sports Commission was even created. So it was truly it was a partnership, and then it wasn't, and now it is again. And so it's been a unique journey.
We did that to give them so they wouldn't be 6 months
So, your, Convention and Visitor Bureau, they allocate part of their transient room tax back to the city and the county, or,
No, there's a county
right,
transient tax,
Right.
and then there's the city.
right?
Now, they both had agreements, some joint agreements on the facilities, like you said, that they had to pay off. They've got to pay all of those things. So some of that goes into a joint pool of funds from that perspective. But the county has money that goes into their account. The city, CVB, has money that goes into their accounts. It's two separate.
It's my understanding that separating CVBs into city and county seems to be a growing trend. I don't, in your all's case, you have hotel rooms out in the county,
Yes.
and so that gives them a revenue source.
Well, and in fact, all most of the hotels are within the city limits, but they still, yeah.
But regardless, they're using part of their transient room tax to fund this.
A portion of it will go toward debt retirement, yes.
The city has put, what the final agreement was on the development of this park in particular was that it's going to be a 50-50 split. The city's going to come up with its money, county's going to come up with its money to go into the.
City government or city tourism?
City government.
Government.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions? Paducah's a long way away.
Same distance from here to there as there.
That's a good answer. Touche.
We have to give that one, we have to go to Franklin, you know that, you know.
What's the size of the county?
The size of the county,
Yeah.
we're at 68,000. I haven't seen what it was today when the new census came out, but it's 68,000.
Y'all got that Crounce money down there. That makes a big difference.
We have river, but you don't get too much of them flowing up and down the river.
We're fortunate, and I would say y'all probably are too, with a very generous community.
Yeah, I think you all have a art center down there, a performing arts center.
Yes, sir.
That's quite impressive.
It is. Half of that was raised by local.
Yep.
City didn't put all that in, they fronted it, but.
Sure.
At that time, that was $40 million project,
Yeah.
and they raised 20, and the state came in.
Nice. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank y'all. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks for a great presentation.
All right, thank y'all.
To make our decision easier.
Safe travels, fellas.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Do we want to take 5, or do we want to just continue on?
Make a motion for adjournment?
No?
Thank you.
Josh?
Yes, sir. Item number 3. This is the hard part. I was really going to just open up the floor to you all at this point to kind of talk about how your response to each of the presentations. And I think there's different factors to be considered of what direction to go, but I've worked with some of the, one of the things I could add to this is I've worked with some of these firms in the past when I was with the state, especially the group that just presented. I've done quite a bit of work with Bacon Farmer Workman and Markham, and they're well respected in the state. I mean, if there's civil, structural, mechanical, electrical work that needs done down in the state, that's who we would usually tap for that work. So they have a good reputation. KLH was a mechanical electrical consultant for the first group. I've used them several times for mechanical electrical projects. They have a really good reputation in the state. So wanted to kind of throw that out there that some of my experience with them. PFGW, they did a dining hall down at the Fish and Wildlife Camp down at Lane Between the Lakes. That I worked with them on that, and these are we can't go wrong tonight. I think all three groups are well qualified, good teams. They've done a good job of bringing a lot of different teams to the different firms to us. I was pleasantly surprised the depth that they went to provide aquatic facility knowledge. The first group brought in a Turner Construction to help with the the constructability part of the project, which I think is important. This last group, I mean, the expertise with the pros consulting and Councilman Hunsaker, that's an asset that I don't know if anybody else can really bring to the table. So I think I don't know if you all want me to dig into opinion too much on my thoughts here. I kind of wanted to let you all
See what Evan thinks. Let's ask Evan. Who do you want to work with?
That's what I was going to
Let's put Evan
ask.
on the spot.
Well, after the first meeting or first presentation that we got presented with, Josh asked me what I thought. My initial response was, I feel that there's probably not going to be a wrong decision. That all of these people are qualified and they're here for a reason. But also looking back on it, I mean, if you want my honest opinion,
No, we don't.
I gave the analogy to Josh as well, too. Brandstetter and Carroll were our original master plan creator. You're not going to buy a Chevy and take it to a Ford dealership to get service, So, is that something we steer away from since they made our initial master plan? That's something I'm unsure of. But as far as all three goes, I think that I don't think that there's a wrong selection. And I think the mayor made a comment, no one wins or loses tonight. It's just someone gets selected and the other two don't. And that's just the unfair part of it, But as far as qualifications go, it seems that all of them are highly qualified in their fields, and I think we'll do a respectable job. Of course, I've never personally worked with the three of these firms, so therefore I'm unsure of who the top candidate is. I did think that all three presentations went very well. It seems that a lot of them have a wide variety of knowledge in parks and recreations and facilities, also with aquatic facilities, which that's what we're looking for. So it is a tough decision. I do think that it's a tough decision for you all to make. But as far as it all goes, I don't think that there's a wrong decision.
Josh, Evan, do y'all feel like you can work with each one of them in your all's minds? I mean, I didn't see any distinction there myself.
Yeah, I think all are very personable people. They were all very polite. They seemed to care about their profession, and that's something that's important as well too. You have to care about the work that you're putting in. So I think relationship would be no problem.
I think we'd be good.
So why don't we do this? Just, if you want to, if you don't want to.
I just have I have one question.
Yes.
On the first group, they did not talk about maintaining and operations
Operational
as
costs and
much.
maintenance costs.
Yeah, I
But is that something we could maybe request? Or
Yeah, we can, they're going to tailor whatever services we ask for once we dig into this. They're not limited. If they need to bring in another consultant to help with that portion, they can. There's nothing that limits them from doing that. I think, I think I was thinking through kind of the differences between the three, right? Like that's what you're trying to, it's hard to pick the differences because they're all qualified and do this work and know what they're doing. I think with the first group, you're going to get a very unique personal touch. I think it's going to be very customized and something that we probably haven't thought about before in a new perspective, which is a good thing. I think with Brandstetter Carroll, it's going to be seamless moving forward with them, just their history with us. I think you're going to get a lot of knowledge that they can bring right away. And then the last group, I think the last group, you're just getting a high level of expertise, national expertise, with a lot of different insight that is very valuable. But it's going to be it's probably not going to be as narrow, as customized as some of the other expertise that we're going to get. So I think, it's really is what perspective we want to bring. I've thought about, like I've sat here and thought about, I've got different projects for each one in mind, really. Like I think about one, the first firm doing a certain thing, and, they're each going to bring certain.
It's a question about the uniqueness of the combination, because that's what struck me. Branstetter Carroll and the last folks, obviously very focused and expertise on aquatics. But the first group, I see them as being really good out-of-the-box thinkers, creative. I see them being, having a high level of expertise in the smaller parks, which we have. I didn't hear too much of that with the other two groups, because they're playing to their strengths, and it's at a bigger scale. And boy, I'd love to be able to find a way to put the last group with the first group. To me, that'd be a dream team, but I don't know if we can do that or not.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get them to work together, but I think from a selection process standpoint, like I've actually thought, like, when I think about the first group, I think about Michael Smith Park, future Second Street Park, some of those more downtown urban settings.
Street Park.
Yes.
Cowan Street Park, yeah,
We
those.
gotta really address those.
And I think.
This is not one of those projects where you have a new regional park you're building. You're doing a lot of, when we talk through the scope, we're taking the master plan, we're looking at deficiencies, and we're overlaying that against facilities you now own, fairgrounds. Fairgrounds has adjacency things that dictate what it is. There's a need for some creativity. We've talked about the Bunny Davis Center. Where's it in 2 years? We've talked about, Michael Smith Park. There's a lot of truth to that. That's one thing that probably is important that we need to think about as a group.
Butler Park.
As a prime example, I mean, you're talking about, you were not doing a regional park. You were overlaying a statistically developed master plan document, and then interlacing these little things into all these little pocket parks. So like Jenny Rogers is a very finite space. And it's not a regional park. It's not that. So there's an element to that probably that I probably didn't think of. And you said that, and I give you credit for that. That's probably something we need to think about. You're not doing a major park. That's not what you're doing. Although it's a lot of money. I don't know if that helps you at all, but that's just a continuation of the dialogue, really.
Well, that's my answer.
If we were gonna put together all of the little projects that we think we might be involved in, what would be a ballpark figure? How many millions are we thinking of?
All that's to be determined. You've set aside about $6.5 million in terms of where you're at right now, but I mean.
Getting started, yeah.
Yeah, but the Parks and Rec master plan, you can spend $20 million, no problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of, and it's just like everything else. And the important thing is to remember that it's not ever finished,
Yeah, that's right.
right? And we always look at these projects like, well, when we get it done, it's done. It's not done. It's never done.
For a finite period of time.
You're doing something for a while, and then somebody's gonna do something else. So when they put the park in at the water plant originally, at the last upgrade, they thought that was the best park ever in the beginning, out there towards Lexington Avenue. It was a passive park. Kids would go out there and play football, and now look at it, right? So like, you're fixing it for a while.
So to your point, Jage, we gotta figure out who the doctors are, and then tell them what kind of surgery we're gonna need.
Be honest with you, I really was impressed with the first group. I said, yeah, Bransfield and Carroll's coming in after them. Good job. I think the Naval and the Bourbon connection, we also got a Naval connection with the, two Naval connections with the second firms.
With the who?
The second, Branstad or Carroll.
Have both have local connections, big time.
Right.
Well, I kind of went into the, when I looked at these presentations, my thought was, I think we need something that is unique to us. And I was really hoping that somebody would bring that. Because some of these pictures, if you look at them, they could be anywhere. And one firm in particular, that could be anywhere. And I called it cookie cutter. They referred to it as signature. We already have some signature looks, but I think we can build on that in a more creative and artistic way. And that's what I really liked with the first firm, was that it was art. That really stood out to me. It's art. And I really feel like they could be very creative and tie it all together with art in an artful way.
Yeah, you don't want it to be Parks and Rec-y, for lack of a better
No,
description.
right. And everything else is.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I'm not an engineer. I don't think like an engineer. I don't think like an architect. We're not going to draw a square and say, this is what it is. I want it to be, when they showed the park inspired by the charm bracelet, that's what,
Yeah, I've been there.
That's what we're looking for.
I've been in that park. That's actually, I didn't realize that at the time. That's pretty cool.
That's
Because
very
it
cool.
does, it's pretty neat. I've been down through there. And a lot of times you'll see designs and layouts, and like we have in our baseball complex, that softball, just that cloverleaf pattern, that's what everybody does. And is there something more creative? I don't know. I mean, but I do side with the idea that we need to be creative, and we need to be different. This is your chance to set this. It's just like we talked about with the streetscape consultant this week. Look, you're messing up Main Street. You better do a good job, and you better make sure that when you think about it, and same thing with Parks and Rec, same thing with you only build one Millennium Park, and then, we're talking about expanding on that on the west side, and you got Jenny Rogers, you're looking at that one time, so maybe there is something to that.
We need something unique to us that
Well-
everyone can say, that is Danville.
The one thing that I'm with you 100%. The one thing that concerns me about that group is they're going to need some expertise. If we're going to get in this aquatics thing, they're going to need some kind of expertise. And that's why I thought, put them together with another firm that has aquatic expertise, but also has a fresh set of eyes. Catch
Well, and I'm sure
Yeah, if
they
that's your
probably have
leaning-
someone.
Yeah, if
that-
that's your leaning, we can ask them.
That's,
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
so that's what I'm thinking. I think we can build on this
This-
and bring
Yeah,
it in.
don't think about this as like you're bidding out a construction contract. This is,
The lead
we
group.
can go back to we can go back to whichever firm you direct us to, or you suggest, I mean, and we could say, okay, this is, tell us if this is possible, this is what we want to do. And then we start talking about scope and fee. And that goes back and forth with selecting a design firm. We can be very flexible with where we go from here. We've done our procurement requirement to interview these firms and receive their qualifications. Now we can kind of it's much more of a discussion and negotiation. Like we can be really flexible. So now that you've seen the groups and you've seen what they can do, we can kind of tailor where we go from here based on that. We don't have to be, hey, we're choosing this one firm, they're doing everything, we can't ever talk about anybody else or think about any other way of doing it. We can really be flexible here. So-
Yeah, they would suggest that they're relying on KLH as their aquatics engineer, which they're an engineering firm, that's what they do. So that's what they're relying on.
And I do think that this vision does put a lot of emphasis on the aquatic center because we are such in dire need of that.
Yeah.
But still, when we do that, we want it to be a unique, customized aquatic center that no one else has.
Yeah, it's still, yeah, I think, you know, the aquatic facility is going to be the biggest dollar item we pay
Yes.
for out of this master plan. But every project we do is equivalent importance to us as far as a community. I mean, you know, all the Jenny Rogers, Michael Smith Park, the aquatic facility, whatever we do at the fairgrounds with expanding Millennium Park, and any new parks we build, every other pocket park we have, Cowan Street, like, they're all the same importance to us as a community. Some are just going to cost more than others. And I think that's why the aquatic facility kind of rises to the top, because that's the largest investment for us. It's the highest risk for us as a community, right? It's a big risk. So I think it is important that we get that right. But like we've talked about, it's also important to get the details right in these smaller parks, because that's where.
Yeah, Cowan Street Park, man, that thing has got all kinds of potential. Jackson Park has all kinds of potential.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we, you know,
Huge there.
I'm still convinced that you got to find something on the south side. I totally agree with that. How you do that, and you know, we've talked about briefly ideas about, you know, maybe some park on the east side, somewhere down the road. You know, there.
Henson Park down there, and here again, that's.
Well, even beyond that, as East Main's expanded, when you get new transportation infrastructure on that end of town, what happens there? You know, you know, we've talked about the historic, some of the historic fields that Bunny Davis played on. You know, we've talked about things like that, and so you got a lot to do. It's long term.
But it's also important
You got to do them right.
to, not only do we build it, but we have to maintain it, and we have to staff it, and we have to run it, and we have to set Evan up for success to do that. And so that was my biggest concern, was the long-term help with the management and operations of an aquatic center.
Okay, how do you want to proceed from here? You want to try to make a decision tonight, or?
I don't know. I think.
You don't have to decide
I think
tonight.
we've got
Y'all
a
can-
good
yeah.
idea of what you all want to do, just from this discussion here. I think we can maybe reach out to the teams and Earl and I and Evan can kind of sit down and think about, okay, what would the ideal scenario look like using these groups? Like, what does that ideal situation look like? And maybe bring that back to you all and say, hey, we would like to start entering into negotiations with this firm for this work and this firm for this work. You know, we could break it down into some detail and then get your approval of that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how you would. I don't know what direction. You would give us
Unless you all want to pick a lead firm.
Unless you want to pick a lead firm, otherwise we can kind of start.
I'm not comfortable doing that.
No, I had the same thought as the mayor. I was looking at either PFGW or Charlie Schneider for aquatics, but everything else, I wanted this group.
The first group.
Yeah. I just thought they would connect everything and be unique.
I'll tell you what,
So that was my thought.
we will talk with the first firm and then see what they would propose to shore up some of those other questions for you. And then we'll come back on the 23rd and talk about it again at the regular meeting.
Yeah, I would like to know what the aquatics and the long term of aquatics would look like. Aquatics.
I just found an interesting page in Newport on the Levee, Ziegler Park and Aquatic Center, Washington Park, the Banks, River Bend, Kings Island, Cincinnati Reds Ballpark, Riverside Park, a wide variety of small but then major types of projects with that first firm, but that's on the pages aren't numbered. It's on the firm profile. So they've done some interesting things. And also about the cost estimates and all that stuff. One of that Jessica Lester, that was supposed to be her expertise, I thought, was the cost estimate lead. I thought somebody had listed an operations lead as well, but
No, they don't really have a lot about the operations, of Aquatics.
That's why I like the, last firm. They really look at, okay, you can build it, but what's it gonna cost to keep it?
That'd be important, yeah. And not build it too big, yeah.
Well, we'll come back with some recommendations at the meeting on the 23rd, which is a week and a half.
We gotta get going.
You know, we'll,
Yep.
so, yep. So, okay, I think we're good on that end. Yep.
When we're done with the discussion, you go to the next item, which is. Don't read the proclamation, just pass the proclamation as presented. Saturday. Yeah.
Can I see it?
What you're proclaiming?
Can I see it? Oh, I was like, what, who's? It's a surprise to me too.
Take your time and read it.
Oh, okay.
Do I hear a motion that we pass the proclamation?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Atkins, is there a second?
Second.
Terry, thank you. Discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carried. That ends our agenda for tonight, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland, second.
Second.
Terry, thank you, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Ashley was gonna go get dinner for us all, adjourned too soon. Is it meatloaf?
Everybody have a good
Oh,
evening.
okay.
Okay.